Dear audience, it's great to have you here in the last session at this stage today. So I hope we'll have a good cerveza y copas afterwards. Thank you for being with us as of now. I had the pleasure to talk to these two guys in the speaker lounge right now. I'm sure you're going to like it. So let's start with Alexandre. Alexandre, who are you? What do you do?
Yeah, I'm Canadian originally. I run a venture fund called Fluent Ventures. Our strategy is geographic alpha. If you look at the #1 technology company in any market around the world, China, India, Africa, Korea, LATAM, the #1 tech company is the same. It's a local Amazon. The #2, #10 are the same. They're digital banks, they're buy now, pay laters, they're Zen businesses. And our strategy is let's try to pick a bunch of these consequential categories and support entrepreneurs working on that. So we invest early stage, we incubate companies. I've had the chance to work with JC on a couple of things, and excited to be here.
That's fantastic. If I were you, I would look at this guy's picks. If he's investing, it's a good one. So it's a tip for the ones out there making some investments as well on startups. So what about you, JD? Who are you and what are you doing here?
Yeah, JC Glancy, originally born in Cleveland, Ohio. Started ZenBusiness.com in 2015 in Austin, Texas. And so what ZenBusiness.com is, for y'all that don't know, it's the largest platform in the US to help small business owners start, run, and grow their business all in the same place. So what that means is we form the corporations, the LLCs, do the compliance, the regulatory, banking, bookkeeping, accounting, taxes, websites, domains, all in one place. Started that in 2015, got to product market fit in 2017. From there, we scaled from $0 to $100 million in less than 5 years. We've now surpassed over 200 million. We've helped start over 1 million businesses in the United States. And last year, after the US government, we formed the most businesses, which is around 15% of all new businesses formed in America. And so currently, I've moved over to Europe. I've lived in Madrid and London, currently in London. And we're working on Candosa. And so what we're doing at Candosa is we are replicating the same proven model and playbook from Zen Business, just using all the new tech and tools and AI that's available to us today within the context of a roll-up strategy. So we're going out and buying very similar companies here in Spain, actually, Historias, for those of you who live here. And then we're putting them on our tech platform to help really improve the capacity and performance of the entire organization. So.
That's great, and that's interesting because I was once a small business owner here in Spain, so I understand that the value proposition that you built before is something that is absolutely essential. So it's part of the day one in the life of a small entrepreneur. At the same time that I understand that it's more or less like your old company is not adapted for the new moment of AI, and you're rebuilding it from a new perspective. So we are going to hear on that.
Totally.
Before, let me just introduce the other bald guy here in the stage. So my name is Eduardo Lorea. I'm originally from Brazil. I'm based in São Paulo, and I'm vice president at Investor S. My job at Investor S is to look at guys like this one and try to attract them to Porto Alegre, Rio Grande do Sul. That's in the very south of Brazil. The ones out there that have already been there, so I know that you know what I'm speaking about. It's a very good environment for new businesses, for innovation. But let's hear from you. Have you ever been to Rio Grande do Sul, to Porto Alegre?
Yeah, yes, sir. I've been to South Summit there. It was great.
It was great.
Yes.
Yeah. So would you recommend for these guys here?
I would definitely recommend. Yes.
That's great. So you heard them, not me. Okay. So now my pitch is done. So let's talk to them right now.
Sounds good.
So James, very nice that if I remember correctly, what you just told me in the way up here, you're homeless right now. Is that correct?
That's right. Yes.
Yeah. So that's what it takes to build an outlier during the AI era. Is that correct?
Exactly right. Yeah. You have to just remain homeless. Jobless is, a different story, but homeless for sure.
So tell us a little bit about what is like rebuilding something, but now from other baseline.
Yeah, I mean, it's super exciting. I could not be more stoked about the availability of the new technology and tools that are available to us that never were when we first started, Zen Business. We can now replicate and build things, with our voice in a matter of, hours that used to take us weeks and months at Zen Business. So the pace of change and the rate at which we can actually build product and really increase the velocity of the team is nothing short of amazing. A good example is one of our designers that worked for us at Zen Business also now came over and works for us at Candosa. And in the interim, he went and worked for an AI company. He got like obsessed with Claude and vibe coding. And knowing what he knew from Zen and coming over to Candosa, he was able to build things that might take us 3, 4, 5 sprint cycles with a full product engineering and design team himself as a designer in like a matter of days. And so that just keeps the rate at which things compounding is just increasing so rapidly. It's like you can't really even take a course on AI without it being stale a week later, right? So that's been, I would say, super exciting, but hard to keep up with, but exciting to keep up with as well.
Yeah, now let's go from, so I'm very interested in your next picks because I want to make good investments and I want to know what you're looking at. So the problem is that the startup next door is also doing the same. So it's not just about being quicker and having the best tools and knowing how to use it. The guys next door are also doing it. So how can you build an outlier and how can an investor spot something singular when the situation is what is happening right now?
Even just taking a step back, like I think that AI, this isn't a new thing, like the lowering the barrier of building a technology company. It's called Silicon Valley because you used to literally have to have, they made Silicon, you used to have like actual server racks to do the thing. It would cost you $1 million before you wrote the first line of code, and that became easier with SaaS, and it's become easier with this. And so if you take that logical extension, I think the same things that have played out over the last cycle are going to play out in a turbocharged way here. What matters will be deeply understanding your customer and the needs you want. We invest a lot in regulated industries, so we like things that have structural moats. But figuring out distribution very, very deeply. If JC can build the product, so can the next guy very quickly. I think one of the things we're going to see a lot more are compound startups. Like when I had invested in Zen Business early on in my previous firm, and one of the things that Zen Business was doing at the time, which was very unique, was like this notion of a compound startup, of offering many different products in one go. We're going to see that a lot more. I actually think we're going to see much more requirement on velocity of shipping. Like that's going to be something that will be deeply ingrained in every company's cultures. And so those are, I think, a couple of the ones that I'm seeing day to day.
Yeah, that's interesting. But yet we are very fast on technology and the usage of AI. You still have markets that are bounded nationally or by market. So I would like to hear from you both. So starting with you, JC. So you got a model that you first used in the US, and then you brought it to Europe.
Right.
So what is the different? What is similar? So what you brought from the US here and what you needed to adapt?
Yeah, I mean, the overlap between what we built at Zen and the needs of the customers, going back to like listening to the customers, I would say are about 80% overlap from the US to here. I mean, the 20% nuance difference is really within terms of the culture, the language barriers, obviously the regulatory environment. But the opportunity there, and the reason I wanted to come to Europe and like decided to live life on hard mode, was because nothing solves complexity in a rules-based environment better than software. And when we're looking at like how to start a company, like all those rules, while they're different on a country-to-country basis, are still like the same relatively within those countries. So once you can crack the code of the complexity, it becomes infinitely easier over time. And so once, and on top of that, once ChatGPT launched, that's what got me really excited about being able to do this in Europe. Without AI, I think you could, but I think it would just take a lot more, pounding your head against the wall, so to speak, because nothing solves, document creation, all of these like super manual workflows that we need to like recreate like, tens, hundreds, thousands of times at Candosa better than AI does. And so I think it's, for the first time ever in human history, actually possible to build a pan-European platform to help make it easier for people to start businesses, knowing that there's a lot of fragmentation, but the fragmentation with AI becomes the opportunity.
That's interesting. And from an investor perspective, I understand that you have an eye for things that you see in one market that may work in another market. So what do you think that may be different in the AI era? Is that different for you in this period?
100%. So a few years ago, I wrote a book called Out-Innovate, which came out of HBR, about tech outside Silicon Valley. And I wrote this notion of like cross-pollination. Like if you look at the example of Uber started in Silicon Valley, got copied in a bunch of different places. What ended up happening in Indonesia, for instance, Gojek built a ride-sharing business on motorcycle taxis, but then they basically inspired themselves from a Chinese app, Tencent, and made a super app. You could buy, get doctor's visits, get a bunch of these things. Those ideas then influenced the original in Silicon Valley. What I'm seeing today is that cycle, that was a 3 to 5 year cycle, that is becoming way faster. The amount of time from a idea starting to break out in the Valley or in Europe or wherever, and then getting in other experiments happening elsewhere is collapsing very, very rapidly. And the bet for our fund, this isn't true for every type of startups, but I think for certain types of companies that have local network effects, that have some amount of operational complexity, that have some amount of regulation, it's unbelievably hard for a US company to go and win in Spain. You have to have a dedicated team executing on that strategy that knows the market. And so I think that know-how has become much more important, even though the translation of ideas will be much more rapid.
Okay, that's interesting. So now I'd like to understand. I understand that you built Zen business in a very different way.
Right.
I assume with a big team or something like that. Mm-hmm. And now at the Condosa, I assume that a much smaller team or something like that. So
right.
All based on AI. So how different it is? So what is the same and what is different in this transition?
Great question.
It was his idea, so
yeah, it was great.
Great question.
It was a great question. So the pieces and parts are still the same, right? Like the importance of listening to the customer and doing qualitative and quantitative research to really understand the pain points and needs and wants of the customer. That is always going to be the same. That's like the secret sauce, right? You really got to get
product market fit is still product market fit.
Exactly right. And so the emphasis on product and design is still there. It's just we need a fraction of the people now. And so now it's like, okay, having done this before, okay, let's go back and we find the best people. From our designer Dennis is a good example. Let's go back and get the 10xer, and then you only really need to hire one of those versus 10 of them now. We're used to have much more people. So that is that's much similar. What's different, I think, is really we're in such a lucky position to not have to be. We can be proactive about using AI versus reactive because we have this, I don't know, some type of debt, whatever you want to call it, from the sins of the past, right? I don't know if it's tech debt or product debt or just people debt or whatever. But now we're getting to build from ground zero using the tools that are available to us. Whereas at Zen, they've had to basically turn an aircraft carrier to try and get AI adoption. Whereas I led from the front, building my own OpenClaw and getting just super excited about it. I spent 14 hours a day for 8 weeks, and then I just started pushing all the work I was doing into the organization through Slack or whatever. And then people started asking about it, and then invariably they started getting excited about it and using it themselves, because there's only a couple different ways that you can really push AI adoption into an organization. You can mandate it. You can do lead from the front and do something cool to get people excited about it. Or someone from a research lab told me the other day, you can just give everyone 10 times the amount of work that they can possibly do, and then they just are forced to catch up.
That's interesting. So let's go back to Alexandre. So I would like for you to speak a little bit about Geo Alpha Prize that you launched here in South Summit. Also Fluent, your venture company back in Condosa. I understand that it's all in a thesis in which you see things in one market that may work in the other. I assume that some people in the others are, but that's using the same ideas, that's copycatting. I assume that copycatting is a good way of working in the startup environment and in the AI. So what would be your defense of these theses that you work on?
I actually think most great ideas are some version of replication and adaptation, and copycat has become a dirty word, but actually I think most great ideas combine a bunch of different insights into a unique way, and that's actually not the hard part. The hard part is doing the thing and building the company. We launched this prize called the Geographic Alpha Prize. The notion is that most startup prizes are broadly fall into two categories. there's kind of category one. There's one here, for instance, where there's a bunch of young companies and who's going to win the pitch competition. And category two is like the old guy at E&Y dinner and on who's done like a great contribution in the local ecosystem, both very worthy. I think that we saw a gap to recognize the folks that have inspired a bunch of other companies, even if, by the way, their original business isn't the one that actually like dominated the category. Like in the case of Uber or ride sharing, you might actually say like the company Sidecar might be there's a company before Uber that actually doesn't exist anymore that kind of was one of the first in this. There's a bunch of these categories where like someone came up with the idea that then generated a bunch of interest and insight that then was adapted and localized different ways. And we want to recognize those types of companies.
Yeah, like Google was like the 13th, search engine.
100%, right? And they happen to have a really good product, and
Right.
they figured out indexing. And so we want to start a conversation about that and like what is it to inspire, and particularly now that I see way more of these compound startup, like what is the inspiration? Often it's like 2 and 3 companies together. We've invested in 3 businesses, just one example. 3 businesses that are doing some version of AI, primary care, preventative health, concierge medicine, something around there. And some borrow from Function Health, which is a unicorn in the US that does basically like AI blood testing. Others are building One Medical. Others are doing an AI roll-up. But actually, a lot of these are converging. Like, what is the inspiration if you end up converging? And so I think it's to have that kind of conversation as well.
That's interesting. So a small note is that Alexandre already told you that we have an edition of South Summit in Latin America, specifically in Porto Alegre. We are already in the 5th edition. And the funny story about that is related to what you're talking about, is that when Governor of Rio Grande do Sul at that time, Eduardo Leite,
Great name.
Yeah, good name, right? So it's something similar with mine. It's a copycat because I was born first.
Adaptation, yeah.
Exactly. So he said, look, I think we have a good innovation ecosystem here, but we are in the south of the world, so we need to put some spotlight to have a great innovation event here. What do you think about bringing something from the outside? So I think it makes sense. We can copy something, or maybe we can get something that already exists and adapt to our environment. So we had this great approach to Maria Benjumea, the founder of South Summit. She said, yeah, let's go to the south of the south. So we have already 5 editions there. And you've been to both editions, right? You've been here in Madrid and you have been to Porto Alegre. So,
and Korea.
And Korea.
Yeah. I happen to be in Korea at the same time. By the way, I'll make one comment on the adaptation part. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't interrupt you.
Sure.
I was just going to say, one of the things that's amazing about adaptations is that often you can see the adaptation eclipse the original. Like in Brazil, for instance, the largest neobank in the world is from Brazil.
Yeah.
The largest edtech in the world came from India. The largest RPA, what's RPA anymore, but like came from Romania. A lot of these companies have eclipsed what others have done, and I think that's exciting. Anyways, sorry, Eduardo.
No, that's perfect. But the interesting part that was an insight during your speak here is that what I saw at South Summit in Madrid, and I thought that it would be interesting in Porto Alegre, is that it was a boring event. Boring event in the sense that it was serious, it was European, so it was very pragmatic. So you had people on suits, the investors, the startups, and
you were calling our panel boring? Is that
no, of course not. And I thought, okay, since we are like the samba dancers in Brazil and we have the sauce for making it fun, so why don't we get this structure from Europe and we assemble that with what we have good in Rio Grande do Sul, and it's a hit. It's working very well already in the 5th edition, and I hope you are there in the next one.
I'm coming.
Yeah, I'm sure.
You heard it from me.
And you can be homeless in Brazil. You're going to be very successful there. We can assist you, so Bibiana is going to rent a room for you, and that's okay. Okay?
A van.
Yeah.
3 hots and a cot.
Yeah. So we have 4 minutes, and then from the questions that Alex suggested us, he put one that I'm not sure if it was him or Claude, so it's either you or Claude, but it's a difficult one. So you said in the AI era, in which everyone can access the same models, where does the real advantage come from? So you speak about durable advantage. Well, it's already difficult in the digital world to have a durable advantage. In the AI world, what is your view on that?
Creativity, 100%. Like I think that I mean, basically, it feels like, tech, product, engineering, building, all of these things have really gotten commoditized.
Yeah.
And so I think the new currency of the future is curiosity and creativity. And I've heard other people say this, but I came to the conclusion myself first. Speaking of like copycats and adaptation, but I really think what's going to set people apart in the future is like their ability to create and be creative, and also not only from a product design problem solving perspective, but also from a go to market and distribution perspective. And so, I mean, really, I think creativity and curiosity is the currency of the future. And that's what's going to separate the what's the term? The cream, the curd from the cream, or whatever.
Cream from the crop.
We all understand what you're trying to say.
Right. That's what's going to separate the best from the rest.
Yeah, but going for you, I understand what you say. Okay, creativity, but that doesn't mean that we are looking at a non-durable company. So one thing coming after the other with more creativity and so on. Do you understand that we can be consistently creative and keep a position in a market? So you're looking from a market structure perspective?
I'll make one comment, which is I think that the nature of what a startup is, like today, if you want to go build a company, like the default is generally you have to go, it's loss making, you have to go get venture capital or whatever. I think we're going to see a greater dispersion of what that means. I think we're going to see on one end more companies that look like the ones that would be clients at Zen Business or Candosa. They're small businesses. They just like build a good product and they just know their customer really well, but they don't have an ambition to scale. And then we're going to see a bunch of others are going to do, I call it, like people are talking about seed strapping. I call it like camel, but like basically like might raise one round, might raise a little bit, be very ambitious, but get to profitability much earlier. And then I think you're going to see people are going to go on turbocharge. And what it takes to win in those, I think, will be a little bit different, perhaps. But maybe the other side of creativity, I think, is like knowing your customer, having an unfair advantage on distribution, having like unfair advantage on, you call it data, but like that's also kind of the customer. I think that those will be some of the things that are going to give a more enduring advantage, I think, if you believe the technology, like the actual product development will be less and less important.
Yeah, I would say ambition and execution kind of in the same vein as
being homeless, trying to build something. Yeah.
I'm ambitiously homeless.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm going to get a house one day.
That's
the
fantastic.
goal.
Yeah. Do you want to add something else?
There's a lot of talk around this like 996 in the Valley. You guys know about that? Like the 9 to 9, 6 days a week, which is like now more and more like 7. I actually don't believe in that. Like I feel like there's kind of a trade-off and just the creativity point. If you know your customer less, but you're younger, you like work harder to run more experiments. And I've seen some unbelievably experienced founders work kind of like much more normal hours, but they just know what they're doing and then can execute much, much more effectively towards what their goal is. And so I actually think it's an unbelievable time to build for anyone, kind of at any stage.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. And I personally hate the 996 thing because like as someone who's, spent, the better part of the last, kind of 20 years, like fumbling through a bunch of failed startups before Zen Business and really knowing what burnout feels like I think that's just the worst thing for, for someone's, it's a marathon. It's really a marathon and not a sprint. You cannot burn the candle at both ends that long and expect to be successful.
That's fantastic. So it was a pleasure having you here on stage.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.